Good evening. I'm going to take the opportunity to address something that someone asked the other day. They wrote and asked me, are ghosts the same thing as angels? And I thought, wait, what? And they meant it in all sincerity. Because as children, a lot of us were told that, okay, your aunt so-and-so, your uncle so-and-so, when they die, they're going to come back as an angel to watch over you. No. Angels are a completely different species. They are not human. They are their own species. Now, you're going to ask, how do I know that? I know that since before I was even in school. When I was a tiny child, I used to have visitors in my room at night. And we'd have detailed conversations, and they'd show me pictures of things. I'll have to give you a whole episode about that. That is quite detailed. But yes, there were angels in my room at night that showed me things about the future. So there you go. That's one thing. In the case of my life as I grew, and since I've known Mark, we've occasionally had angel interactions too. Just before I met Mark, not just before, it must have been about the mid-1980s, late 1980s, I was walking through London one day, and back then, you didn't have GPS on a phone. You had an A to Z guide. It was a little pocket-sized book, like that. So I was looking on this map, and I thought, I want to find that pub. Where is that pub that I remember? And I was walking up the street, and I was headed toward Covent Garden. Should have been like veering off toward the left. And across the street, there was a man who had on sort of, they looked like wool trousers, and they had pleats in the front. They looked very 1940s or 50s. And he had on a jacket and a hat that had a rim all the way around it. And it looked like the sort of fedora-style hat that my father and all of his friends wore back in the 1950s. And he saw me across the street, and it wasn't a busy road at that moment. You know, he could see me across the street, and he said, hello? And I said, hello? And he said, do you need help? And I said, no, I'm fine. And I looked back down at my guide, and he said, are you looking for something? And I said, yes. Didn't there used to be a pub here? Not on this side of the street. I said, was it over there on that side of the street? I said, I can describe the front of it to you. And I gave him a brief description of what I thought the pub looked like. And he just looked at me and he said, oh, okay. And I thought, all right, what's happened there? And he said, that pub hasn't been here since World War II. You're remembering a pub that isn't here and hasn't been here. He said, you were born after World War II, surely? And I said, yes, I was. And he said, that hasn't been here, and you shouldn't have any way of remembering that. And we just sort of stood there for a second, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I looked down. I got nervous, and I looked down at my guide for a minute, and I looked up and looked across the street to say something else to him, and he was gone. He was gone. So, that wasn't a ghost. There was a different energy. I'm going to describe to you what the energy is that's different. I've seen angels that glow. This man didn't glow, but he was definitely not a ghost because there was a lucid conversation going on. And there's a luminosity that comes from them, whether you can see it or not. I can actually see it sometimes. But there is a luminosity about the way they speak, the way they act, the way they gesture with their hands, whatever. There's something that's so completely different. It's not human, and it's most certainly not a ghost. All right? So, another ghost episode for you. Now, this was in autumn of 1994. Mark and I were on a trip to Ireland, and we had rented a car. I had hired a car in Dublin, and we were going to go out around the Ring of Kerry and then do part of the coast and then go up towards Newgrange and go back around the middle a little bit, go through some parts of the middle section, and then we were going to go back to the UK on the ferry by way of Wales. We were driving, and it was a gray day. It was so foggy, you really could not see your hand in front of your face. It was crazy. And I said to him, are we driving at a cautious enough speed? And he said, yeah, we have to. He said, I can barely see the road in front of us. And I said, okay, well, that's good. And we had come out of a side street, and we'd looked and made sure there was nobody anywhere. There were no lights or anything. He pulled out, turned left, and we started going forward. And we hadn't gone that far, but we were well past accelerating. And I said to him, oh God, I'm so sorry. It's going to happen now. And he went, what? And we got rear-ended by somebody who was speeding in the fog. He was breaking the law. He was absolutely going so fast. It was just absolutely frightening. And the car just, and fortunately, Mark kept his wits about him because the car moved and spun a little bit. And someone stopped, pulled off the side of the road and called on their mobile. They called the police, the Irish police, and they came to take a report. And they made a point of saying to this man, you were speeding, you caused this accident. But what was the sort of defining moment of the entire incident was that as we were about to hit, I felt two arms go around me like this and hold me back against the seat and held me very steady. So I was kept safe. And I looked at Mark and he said, what just happened there? And I said, I got held in the arms of angels. I said, someone kept me safe. So the policeman said, look, your car is not so crumpled that it can't drive. He said, we're going to take this piece off the back and we're going to put it, in the boot of the car, and then you can turn it in when you take it back to Dublin. And we said, okay, fine. He said, go up the road. There's a pub up there. They should still be serving food. Go in there and see if they'll give you a meal. So we got up there, and I got out of the car, and literally my knees were about to buckle because I thought we could have been killed. We could have been absolutely killed. We were in the tiniest car. I was trying to, have the most cost-effective trip that we could, and I was paying for it. And we got out, and a woman came to the door, and she said, you're looking for food? And I said, yes. And she said, come on. She said, we're supposed to be closed. Come on. And there was no reason for her to have come to the door or even seen us. We were on the side street. There were no windows there. There was no way for her to have seen us. So we walked across. Mark had his arm firmly around my waist, and we went across the street. And she said, just follow me. We'll go to the back. There's a little small dining room back here where the staff eat. She said, is that fine? And I said, yes, that's fine. Thank you very much. Where's the ladies' room? So she showed me where it was. And I'm walking down the hallway to go to the ladies' room. And I felt like I was walking about this far off the ground. I wasn't, seriously, I felt like my feet were not on the ground. And as I'm walking, I saw an angel right in front of me. And in this case, there was a glow off this being. It was just a silhouette, and it was a she, and she was walking directly in front of me. And she said, just follow me. I'll tell you what we're going to do. So I walked forward, and she got to a place just before we got to the toilets. And she said, do you see what I'm trying to show you? And I said, yes. And there was like a path that went off this way. And then there was a path that went off this way. And she said, you have so much work to do in your life to share these kind of things. She said, you can choose. If you're tired of life, she said, you can always choose that path and take the easy way out. That's fine. She said, or you can choose the hard path. And you can write about these things and talk about these things. And you will be misunderstood, but it's your choice. I'm not going to tell you what you should do. We will never tell you what you should do. And I said to you, you're not one of my angels I've met before. And she said, no, but you'll continue to meet us throughout your life. And I said, okay, all right. So went to the little girl's room, washed my hands, came back, sat down. There was one of those little banquette things where the scoop of leather seating and the little round table in front of you. And she brought us out, the lady who owned the pub, she brought us out a big bowl of hot soup and some fresh bread and a cup of tea. No, actually, she brought us a pot of tea. So we sat there eating hot food. And he said to me, "Are you all right?" I said, "We need to check into a hotel, and I have so much to tell you because I'm afraid if I let go right now and start crying, I won't stop. And I don't want to embarrass us in a public place. So let's just eat and go find a hotel." So we did that, and the woman told us where to go. And she called ahead and got a room for us. And we checked in, and I told him all of this, and he said, "Well, that doesn't surprise me, Deborah." He said, "Ever since the day I met you, things come out of your mouth that I never would expect. Absolutely, would never expect." And he said, "I think you're given this knowledge for a reason, but no, nobody's going to force you to share it with the world." There are so many times in my life I've wanted to tell people these kind of stories, and I haven't. Because we've been in a situation where it wasn't necessarily socially acceptable to do so. Also, I've been very cognizant that not everyone's comfortable with these things, and I would never want to force that down someone's throat. So I waited to see how to approach this. I had some times in the early 1990s when I discussed all sorts of paranormal and psychic phenomena. The next episode I do, I tell you what, here's what we'll do. The next episode will be Why Now? And I'll discuss why now. Why am I doing it now? No, don't go thinking, "Oh Lord, she's sick, she's dying," that kind of, no, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. No, it's just time. It's time for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to have to be very careful not to be political and not to say anything about the politics in the world, because that would be really easy to do. I have, news groups that I follow. If I want to vent about politics, I do that there. Or I do that in FaceTime calls with my friends and family. But no, I won't be talking about politics. This is a cyclical thing in the world. The mess that the world is in, it's quite a cycle. And we seem to be back there again. So, if you see something that looks like a human, but it gives off a different energy, and you may even see a little bit of a glow, not a lot. It's not like they're the pictures in Bibles and, religious art, and they're beaming out like this with, big beams coming out like that. No. That's not what I've ever seen. It's always been very subtle. It's been just like if someone took really good Hollywood makeup and just made them up beautifully and then put a light behind them so that it shone up through the back of their hair, and there was just like a slight little essence of light around it. That's how I look at angels. Seriously. I have occasionally, when I was younger, when I was quite young, I would see angels that didn't have a very defined form. They looked vaguely human-esque, but they were more twinkly and glowy. And then, if they thought I was disturbed, they would, all of a sudden there was a face would be there. So there's a lot. There's a lot. Someone asked me a particularly good question this week. It's in the questions, if you want to go back to last week's episode and look. And I told her, I said, "Ooh, this is a really good one. Let's save that." What we're going to do is I need you to write and ask questions. What would you like to know about? Because then what we can do is a whole episode that will be a Q&A. We can have, okay, and I won't name you unless you want me to. I can have, okay, someone here from Maine, someone here from, the middle of France, someone here from the middle of England, someone from Scotland. They've written to me and asked me, and I'll read the question, and then I'll give you the answer. And I'll give you the answer as it applies to my life and my experience. I'm not going to make things up to make you think, ooh, she knows everything. No, I don't. Good gravy, no. No. I'm scratching the surface of what's been going on this planet for centuries, for millennia, for God knows how many millennia, all right? So I will do everything I can to answer as truthfully as I can based on my own personal experience. And if you ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, I'll give you the same answer that I used to give to my children when they were small. They would ask me a question and I'd say, you know what? I don't know that, but I'll look it up and see if I can find an answer for you. So that's the best I can do. Now, we're going to end this here. Please like, subscribe, add comments, please ask questions, and put the little bell on so that you know when we're back. And the next thing is share it. There's a little arrow that lets you share. Share with people that might be interested in this, friends or family. Go ahead, do share. We need to keep growing this channel. We really do. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Bye.